Well, for our spring watercolour lessons, we're going to start with a lesson on rocks. Two choices here. You can do some sort of doodled rocks, or you can do some Zen rocks, or you can do both if you like. It's totally up to you. I've done the drawings for both first to show you, and in the second video I'll be doing the pile of Zen rocks, and in the first one we'll be doing the doodle rocks. So I have some 140-pound Arches paper, 5 inches by 7, and I'm going to wet that down to do the background colour. And I've tried several different background colours. It really wants to be a lovely turquoisey blue and a green that matches that blue. So I'm just wiping the water from the edges of the tape so you don't get any back runs, getting any hairs and bits out of my background there. And I really love the Cobalt Teal. It's a core colour, so I've chosen that. You could use cerulean blue, you could use phthalo blue, just a turquoise. A lovely turquoisey blue works well for this composition. So I put that on first, and then I'm going to use sap green, which I have mixed myself. I use Quinacridone Gold and phthalo green, and sometimes a little bit of phthalo blue, and that makes a bright sap green. I also mixed one using phthalo blue and phthalo green, I think, and some azo yellow. That also made a very lovely green. So I'm drying the edge. Here's some mixes that I liked that I made. I really like the cerulean blue with the phthalo green. That made a nice bright mix. So you can choose to mix your own turquoise or your own green, and these were the mixes I tried out for my choice. It's going to form the background of your rocks. I'm using my Pigma Micron pen 01 to outline all my rocks, and even though I'm going to be painting between the rocks, all the negative space, with a very dark colour, it helps to outline them first. It really keeps your painting nice and sharp and clean and helps you find the edges without going over onto your rocks and making a mess. I will be using Paynes grey mixed with phthalo blue and ultramarine blue and a little bit of burnt sienna to make a very dark background colour. Now you can use a black, you can use a black ink if you like, but I am mixing Paynes grey, Winsor blue, which is like a phthalo blue, ultramarine blue, little touch of phthalo green. I want it to be a very dark but lively colour with some of the colours in that I've used for the rocks. I'm testing that out, and I felt it was a little bit too blue, so I'm going to add just a touch of burnt sienna to warm it up a little bit. And that will make a complement to the very cool blues and greens I have in the background, just to have a warm grey, very dark, almost black actually, colour. Now I'm going to paint very, very carefully with a small brush. I believe that's my number 4 brush, using mostly the point of the brush so that I get a very crisp edge around the rocks. I'm going to paint all the negative space. And in a moment I will have to turn my board so that I don't. The worst thing you can do is get your wrist in your wet paint and smudge it all, because that's very difficult to clean up. So it's also difficult when I'm filming, because usually I would be moving my board around all the time to keep it close to me, but I have to try and keep it right where the camera can see it, so I don't turn it as often or get as close as I would like to, which makes it a little bit more tricky for me to paint this carefully. But I know when you do it, you can turn your board, you can make it easier for yourself, and keep your brush mainly upright, so it's just, for most of the time, just the point of the brush touching, and get that nice clean edge first, and then you can use more of the belly of the brush. You can push it down a little bit more to fill in between the edges, but really try and keep it nice and crisp. And you can see this Paynes grey mix is quite dark. It reads as black, especially with the nice light rocks. And like I say, you can use black if you would like to. I just prefer a more colourful dark. And even if you want to use black, if you don't have Paynes grey, you can mix a little bit of ultramarine blue and phthalo blue with your black to make it a bit more lively and to echo some of the colours you've used in the rocks. And this is where I have to be very careful I don't lean in any of the paint that I've got on there that's wet. And if I wasn't filming, I might go away and let it dry. Now I've had to stop and just move ahead a little bit. I've got my beautiful new Princeton Rigger 2/0 Princeton Rigger liner brush, and I'm going to outline the rocks just a little bit more to pull it into the background mix. And that will help join the background to the rocks. Now, when I originally did this painting in my journal, I used my Finetec Moiré and iridescent paints to make it shiny. I kind of really like using them, and I'm going back to the dragonfly that I did to show how you can use other paints. You don't have to use the expensive Finetec to mix it. You can use just one pot of iridescent paint with some gum arabic so that it echoes a good watercolour. It will stay on the paper. I use a little tiny bit, it's probably like 1/8 of a teaspoon of gum arabic with about 1/8 of a teaspoon of the iridescent powder, and I can mix that with all my watercolour paints. I can mix it with phthalo blue or a beautiful green and make iridescent paints, so you don't have to spend a lot of money to get them. The white you see in the tray there is some Dr. P.H. Martin's white, and that mixed with the iridescent powder will make a lovely iridescent white, and I also mix it with the other colours to mix iridescent paint. Now we will be painting the dragonfly on black paper. That's why I put this clip in there, just to show you if you want to do iridescent paint how you can mix it. And I've mixed it here with some red iron oxide, with some phthalo blue, with some of the green, and I am painting it over the rocks and also using some of my Finetec Moiré iridescent paint because I love it. But it is very expensive. That little six pack one is about $45, and it does give such a beautiful sheen to your work though. When we have class, I will bring my iridescent powders and gum arabic and lots of little mixing trays, so if this is something you would like to do to make your rocks look shiny and iridescent, then go ahead. If it doesn't appeal to you, if you prefer your rocks to just be plain watercolour, that's fine. You can actually do a little bit more shading on your rocks by adding a tiny little more of the blue that you used and the green. And I'm doing that here. I'm getting a little bit of the sap green that I mixed, and I'm just putting a little shadow behind the other rock to give them some more three-dimensional quality, add some shadows, more definition to the painting. And I'll just blend that in with the iridescent paint. And this is an abstract rock. It's just based on rock shapes with the negative space filled in with nice dark colours. And you can just leave it like this with shading and iridescent on the rocks. Or you can do as I did, and you can put some white and black, even silver, doodling on afterwards. I've been watching a lady on YouTube, CeeCee, and she does all kinds of beautiful journaling with watercolour and doodles on top, and I'll put a link to her video so that you could watch that if you would like to. And when we come to class, I will also bring a sheet of doodling examples, so you have lots to choose from. You can do different ones on each rock. Sometimes if you haven't done a lot of doodling, you kind of sit there and think, what shape am I going to do on this one? But it doesn't have to be very complicated. Series of little circles or lines or wiggles, and it gives a really nice sort of look to the rocks. So I'm using just gentle touch with either the white iridescent or the blue or the green, or the more warm tone, you'll see I'm just going to pick out a couple of the rocks to put the warm iron oxide tone on, so that against all the blue and the green ones, there will be one that's just got a reddish brownish tone, and that will stand out. Complementary rock. And if you don't have red iron oxide to mix that colour, you can use burnt sienna. You can use burnt sienna with a little touch of cadmium red, or you can use burnt sienna with a little touch of permanent rose. Any type of warm colour to your burnt sienna to make it just there's a touch more reddish or pinkish. So now I've put the iridescent on, and I'm adding a little bit of the phthalo green with cerulean blue mix to darken that pebble. And in my paints I have some gold and some peachy colours. I'm just adding a little bit of that to the other side of the rock to warm it up a little bit. And if you look down now, I had to stop and restart the video, but if you look down towards the bottom of the painting, you can see a little bit of that iron oxide iridescent colour on the rock nestled at the bottom. And I'm adding some blue and some green to the shading. So when a rock goes behind another rock, then you're going to have a little bit of shadow, and this will give your painting a little bit more dimension. And I'm just smoothing that in with some water, and then a little bit of very light iridescent paint. You can't see the iridescent too well on camera, it doesn't really show up. Now I had a little drip there, so I'm going to go back and fix the little spots where I dripped a bit of paint. And that's a good reason to keep your dark black grey mix handy. You can re-wet it again and fix any of the little spots, and you must make sure that your little drips or whatever are dry before you do that, or you're going to get even more mess happening. I always manage to get some mess. Now I have my jelly roll pens, which I really love. They last a long time and they have good opaque colour. And I have a white one in different sizes. So this is the, I think this is the, might be the 05. And I'm putting some little white doodles on this rock. So it's a straight line, then a dot, straight line, then a dot. And I'm staggering it so that the dots don't all come above each other. And you might notice that I'm not going straight across. I'm sort of following the curve of the rock. So that gives it, again, more dimension. It suggests the shape of the rock as you go around. And this part is very relaxing. I've got my Micron 01 black Pigma pen, and I'm going to put some stripy lines on this. And like I said, I'll bring a sheet of doodle suggestions to class, and you can try them out, decide what you'd like to use. I first did this one in my journal and loved the results. So I'm doing some wavy lines. I got to this stage and thought, oh, maybe that looks a little bit too much like an Easter egg. I wasn't too happy with that, but once you've started, you've got to continue. So when you're picking and looking at your sheet, pick wisely. And you can kind of see the sheen of the iridescent paint, but it's better in real life. And you just slowly work your way through with your doodles. I do recommend watching CeeCee's YouTube, because she has some very lovely ideas that you can do with watercolour. And this is the finished one. I've sort of gone with the shell theme, and thank you for watching.